Today's webinar, we're going to talk about the 5 dangers facing female athletes, and the key is how you can avoid them. Right? As parents, as young athletes, these are tips that we've seen that really help our athletes. And so the 5 dangers that we see every day in our female athletes is lack of understanding how the body works, decreased knowledge of sports nutrition, supplementation, muscle imbalances, especially about the hips, a decrease in athletic fundamentals, and we'll go through what that means. And then lastly but not least, lack of recovery or lack of understanding how you recover. So danger number 1 is understanding how your body works. Every parent, every female athlete needs to understand about the athlete's triad. That's gotten more and more attention lately about what that really is, which the key is, as you look over here, is this disordered eating. All right? You have a low energy availability, which basically you're not getting enough calories. If you don't get enough calories, right, then your body understandably can't work to its maximum efficiency. Right? The second part of the female athlete triad is this low bone density, and we'll talk more about that when we get to nutrition, but that's understanding your bone density, your calcium levels, your iron levels, your vitamin D levels. And then lastly, the one thing no one really wants to talk about, but really understanding when we talk about menstrual dysfunction or either irregular or loss of period. That's a telltale sign that your body is not performing at this optimal level if you have an irregular or you miss a period. So the bottom line, if you don't remember anything I say, you listen to food is fuel. A lot of our athletes that we see today, because the school's so long, you're getting there at 7, you may not be leaving until 3, then you've got practice. Right? A lot of our athletes are not getting enough food, enough calories. We'll talk about the type of calories, but really just understanding that we got to get a lot of times more calories. All right, so energy out, it's got to be as far as energy taken in. Right? And so what happens if you don't if your energy out is greater, you're practicing, you're not recovering, you got games, right? You're not eating enough, then the energy you're putting in your body, so what happens? All right, so you have a decrease in normal body functions, decrease in estrogen levels, all right, which is a hormone that the women have, right, that if that's decreased, it leads to bone and muscle breakdown. And you're going to have enough of that just by being an athlete and practicing. So if that breaks down, all right, then that leads to what no one wants to talk about, which is injury. All right, the other thing that leads to decreased performance. Even if you don't have an injury, you're going to have decreased performance because you're not going to recover. In the fourth quarter, when you need to be the best, right, you're going to have a low energy level. All right, second part of the female athlete triad we talked about was osteoporosis, osteopenia, which basically means that you've got soft bones, and again, that's because of low energy levels. All right, you get low bone mass. All right, you've seen everyone has a grandmother or knows someone who walks with a very curved posture. That's a lack of bone density that gradually curves your spine. Right? And then for our young athletes, that leads to what's stress fracture. This we see a lot of times in gymnasts, cross-country runners, and really what that is that the stress you're putting on it to be the athlete you want to be is too much for the fuel you're putting in your body. And so you'll see a stress reaction first. Sometimes that's just soreness, right? Then you'll get a slight crack in the bone, which is a fracture, right? And it's a telltale sign, right, that you're not getting enough nutrients in your body. Right? So remember that fitness and fragility don't mix. Right? So we show this image all the time. All right, that to be as pretty as she is, all right, you'll see the muscle development here. You'll see the muscle development here. All right. Again, if our peers want to be on the cover, they can't run this fast. All right, and they're not going to be able to dance this well. Right? All right. Danger number 2. It's apparent almost across all athletes, but especially female athletes, because you're dealing with some body image things in our society, is that the decreased knowledge of sports nutrition and supplementation. What do I mean by that? All right, proper nutrition, essential for performance. All right, healthy eating habits are essential to learn at a young age because it lasts a lifetime. All right, understanding protein. All right, protein really the key is, and that's our dairy, that's our meats. All right, that's our legumes or beans. All right, I need that for what? Muscle tissue to repair. All right, and so how much do I need? I need 0.8 to 1.0 grams per pound of body weight. Okay, so here's the example. All right, 120 grams if I've got 1 gram per pound of body weight, 120-pound athlete, all right, what is that going to be? 120 grams, which seems like a lot, all right? Anytime I talk to parents, they go, oh my goodness, 120 grams, all right? But let's break it down. All right, if we have a 2,000 calorie diet, so there's 4 calories per gram of protein. So how many calories is that? 480. So how many is 480 calories out of 2,000 calories? 24%. All right, so if I told you I wanted 24% of your calories to come from protein, then everybody's okay with that. All right, but if I say 120 grams, it seems like a lot. So before we were talking about the menstrual dysfunction, right? Just understanding the terminology, amenorrhea, which means you either have irregular cycles, which is between greater than 35 days between the period, right? Or if you got over 3 months when you've missed a period, or you haven't had a menstruation by the time 16, then that goes into this category. If you haven't had that, any of this, then that's when we have you consult with your physician, because there's things that needs to be done, because you're at risk to have everything we talked about in this slide, which is low bone mass, skeleton being fragile, and then you're going to have a stress fracture. All right. So remember, shoot for 25% of your calories, but 120 grams if you're a 120-pound athlete, 150 pounds, 150 grams. All right, but usually we'll tell athletes to get the MyFitnessPal app, and when they have the MyFitnessPal app, they can just plug everything in. All right, it tells you how many grams you're getting of each thing, and also the percentages. All right, sources, we know some of the sources. What's interesting is that if we look at the caloric intake, all right, of these, all right, they're actually relatively high in protein, all right, compared to meat. If I have 100 calories of spinach, 100 calories of lean beef, all right, they're going to be pretty close. All right, this has more calories if I measure by weight because of the fat content. But these vegetables are actually relatively high in protein, so something to consider. All right, and then fats. All right, more and more stuff's coming out today that fats are not necessarily bad for you. We want the good fats. All right, but again, a little bit higher here. All right, so if I do the math, all right, if I wanted 25%, all right, to come from protein, all right, and I wanted 20% to come from fat, then I'm at 55% carbohydrates, and that's relatively low compared to what most Americans eat, which is about 70% carbohydrates because of all the processed foods we eat. Okay, so again, just understanding how to break that down, you're going to be a better athlete, because you're going to have higher energy levels at crunch time. All right. Then we talk about post-workout nutrition. All right. So we want people to get 15 to 20 grams of protein at the end of practice or at the end of the game. There's about a 30-minute to an hour window, which your muscles are really wanting that energy, the glycogen that needs to be replaced. And so having 15 grams, and we talk about that, we're talking a couple hundred calories that you would eat right after, which is going to help you recover much better. All right. Now let's talk about vitamin D. All right. The big thing about vitamin D is for our athletes. All right. It keeps your bones healthier. All right. So higher levels of vitamin D, all these things decrease infection, decreases chances of tendonitis. All right. Lower blood pressure for us adults. All right. Improved memory, info processing. All right. What adult and teenage athlete does not need that? All right. But all right, as we go into it, what's your vitamin D level? We want every one of our female athletes to know the vitamin D level. All right. In the normal range, this is important to understand, 30 to 80. All right. So when you call and you get your blood work, all right, you want to know what your number is. All right. Because they may call and say, hey, you're within normal limits. All right. But you may be a 31. All right. That's a low normal. All right. What the studies show is we want to be at 50. All right. 50 plus, really. Okay. And so if we're at 50 plus, all right, then we're going to pass that test of what our vitamin D levels. Remember, the purpose of vitamin D really is to take the calcium to the bones. So most of us understand that calcium is important for bone health and bone density, but what takes the calcium to the bones? That's the vitamin D, right? It's a source of the sun, right? But even we see a lot of athletes today that even if they're out in the sun, because we spend so much time indoors, that they're still low. So we ask every one of our athletes to know. There was a study that came out a couple years ago in the American Journal of Sports Medicine that looked at soccer players. They were at California College, a D2 college out there. They measured male and female, all right, and they found that about 40% of them were lower than they would want in vitamin D levels. So they were lower than 50. Right? So know your number there. Okay, number 3, dangers facing female athletes is just muscle imbalances in general. Whatever sport you play, there's inherent movements that are part of the sport. If you're a soccer player, right, then we're going to look a lot at your hips. If you're a basketball player, we're going to look a lot at your knees and your quads and hips as well. All right, but the understanding is that 80% of the athletes we see, all right, have weak and dysfunctional hips. So the easiest test to do is to do a side plank. Right, lie on your side, lift up, and then when you're doing that, hold for 30 seconds. At the end of 30 seconds, you should be able to do 10 leg raises. So if you can't do that, then hips are not as strong as they should be, right? And understanding that that's the essential part of your core. So remember, the core, not just abs, right, but it's your sides and your back. So your glutes, your side hips, and your abdominals, that makes up the core. Number 4 is understanding that almost every athlete that we see needs to have an off season, and the off season needs to be they're working on these fundamentals. So what are the fundamentals? Right? As we talk about these, it's the ABCs. Right? So agility, balance, coordination, speed. Right? So what are we doing during the off season? Right? So if you're a soccer player, then during this winter we want you to play basketball. Right? We want you, if not playing basketball, then you're taking time to do a little weight training. You're taking time to do some agility, things other than your sport to give your body time to recover, but also work on those things that will make you better athletically. The key is that as you develop as an athlete, all right, you have skill, and that's what you need initially, all right, but once you're starting to get the skill, then we need to work on things that will make this even better, which is not necessarily more practice of the skill, right? It's some practice, but then I need to work on how do I get quicker. How's my balance on the ball, off the ball? All right, how's my coordination reaction time? All right, and then how straight, just linear speed I can have. So every athlete, when we design a program for them, that's what they've got to be able to do. And then number 5, all right, is really understanding. We know this intuitively, but we don't practice it enough, right? So 7 to 9 hours, right, especially for a young developing mind. That's one of the reasons why when our athletes today have concussions, one of the reasons why concussions are a big deal and they last longer than they should, because we don't get this, right, and we never turn off these things. So our brain is constantly going, right, and so that, again, keeps us from recovering from simple things, right? I'm not saying a concussion is simple, but a lot of times if we can shut down the brain some, right, then we're going to be much better. Understanding post-workout nutrition, again, 30 minutes, we talked about that. 3-to-1 carb to protein ratio, right? No more than that. So again, if I'm going to get a couple hundred calories from that, then I'm looking at probably 15 to 20 grams of protein in that, right? And then last but not least, understanding mobility. All right, with understanding foam rolling, how to do that for my hips, my calves, my shoulders if I'm an overhead athlete, all right, and understanding about stretching. All right, so if we go back and we look, let's go back to the very beginning here. All right, so understand how your body works. All right, the female athlete triad, all right, understanding that I've got to learn about sports nutrition, all right, supplementation. If my vitamin D level is low, then I'm going to have to take a supplement. Not a big deal. Get your blood work done. Get it to where it should be. Right? Understanding about my muscle imbalances, about my hips. Right? Have an off season where I'm going to work on agility, balance, coordination, straight linear speed. Right? And then understanding what I got to do to recover. Whether that's sleep, whether that's nutrition after I work out, whether that's foam roll, whether that's extra stretching, whatever it may be. But if we can work on these areas, then we're going to prevent a lot of injuries, but more than that, though, we're going to enhance your performance. All right, so if you like this information, make sure that you're part of Female Athlete University. We've got a lot of information coming out. We're going to have interviews with athletes from the collegiate setting, talking to the middle school and high school athletes about what they wish they would have known that they know now when they're a collegiate athlete. We have information for parents, and we're also going to have information for recruiting, for sports nutrition, as far as simple things about smoothies, protein bars, things like that. So just a lot of good information coming your way. So look in your inbox, you'll get good information, and also explore the website. Thank you.